I'm Jim Langford. I'm with Linger Longer Communities, and here to talk to you about Jekyll and let you talk about Jekyll. And I'll say that this is great turnout. We hope more folks will come in the door in the next 5 or 10 minutes as well. The plan that you're going to hear about today is not set in stone. Is not set in stone. This is a plan that we came up with as part of our response to a request for a proposal that the Jekyll Island Authority put out there. So think about the plan as kind of the beginning of a conversation, And we put that plan out there. We got feedback the past 2 or 3 months. You know, some in telephone, some in person, some in people's living rooms. You know, lots of different ways, lots of email, a lot of conversation has already been going on. So this is another part of that conversation, another part of the conversation. It's a time for us to give you some of the things that we've learned after questions that you've already submitted to us. It's a time for you to ask maybe new questions, provide your comment. It's part of this ongoing conversation. Next. The beginning of Jekyll, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the history of Jekyll. You all are here because you know Jekyll and you care about Jekyll, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. But the early settlers, the Gwali, the Timucua, the French, the Spanish, and the English, you know, those were the early folks at Jekyll. I come from an archaeology and historic preservation background, and that stuff's really important to me. The Jekyll Island Club era, we all know about that in the early 1900s, late 1800s. The historic landmark events, the Federal Reserve getting started at Jekyll, the first transatlantic telephone call made by Theodore Vail. His name will come up again in this presentation. Next slide. In 1947, the state of Georgia acquired Jekyll. We know about that. The causeway construction in the 1950s opened Jekyll to auto traffic. Homes were allowed to be built on the island. Let people go out there and live. New hotels began to accommodate a growing number of visitors. Gosh, this photo looks like it's about 1958, and maybe that's me somewhere right in there. The first time I ever saw the ocean was in 1958 at Jekyll Island, like a lot of you, like a lot of people across Georgia. And let me tell you, I grew up in Calhoun, Georgia, which is up the road about an hour from here now. To get from the mountains in Calhoun, Georgia to the beach in 1952 took 12 or 14 hours. I mean, it took forever. So it was a big deal to be able to say that we'd gone to the beach. We had seen the beach at Jekyll Island. And there are a lot of people across Georgia who saw the ocean for the first time at Jekyll Island. That's one of the reasons Jekyll is such a special place to so many people. It has that kind of sentimental and emotional attachment to us. The need for revitalization. From 1990 to 2006, visitation to Jekyll fell by more than 47%. This shows you what happened to that visitation during that period. Very steep and steady decline. Very steep and steady decline. Hotel room nights declined by 30% during the same period. Okay? The average number of cars crossing the causeway is down 50% to just 4,000. According to DOT, the capacity is as much as 21,000 cars per day. Now, this sort of shows that decline in here of occupancy, and you see what's happened there. Next slide. Many of the existing structures are more than 30 years old. Quality of the lodging, the variety of the retail, the restaurant offerings, all those things have gone down, so that the island's competitive positioning to other coastal destinations has declined. Many citizens choose not to visit Jekyll. Some people say, gosh, what if we had just a little more advertising? What if we doubled our advertising budget at Jekyll? There are people who have chosen not to come back to Jekyll. More advertising isn't going to help with those people. You know, the dentist convention, the sheriff's convention, on and on. They don't go to Jekyll anymore. You know, they go to Savannah or they go out of state. They go to places in Florida because they've just decided, gosh, you know, hotel rooms aren't that great on Jekyll, and if I want something great to eat, I got to drive into Brunswick, and the kids don't have much to do. You know, they just choose not to come back for whatever reason. Lack of revenues, meaning revenues that the Jekyll Island Authority makes off of these visitations, it hinders the Jekyll Island Authority's ability to reinvest in the island and upgrade and maintain the facilities in the park, which it is required to do by law. It's required by law that Jekyll Island be self-sustaining, and they haven't been self-sustaining lately in the past few years. In June 2007, Jekyll Island Authority issued an RFP, a request for proposal, seeking a long-term private partner for revitalizing the island. Revitalizing the island. Linger Longer Communities was unanimously selected by the Jekyll Island Authority on September 24th. That's been the starting point for this public-private partnership. Let me say this, during that period, I mean, and you all followed, I'm sure, in the newspapers in the spring and in the winter and spring and on, you know, all of the things that were going on at Jekyll. And during that period, gosh, the stories were, oh my gosh, there's going to be $300 a night hotel rooms. And they're going to be gated, it's going to be a gated community. They're going to be condo towers on the beach. And, you know, all of these stories that really scared a lot of folks, and rightfully so. We began working on this project, I did on July the 6th, on July the 6th. Now, I was asked by, just a little personal statement here, you know, I was asked by Linger Longer, gee, what kind of things would you want to work on? Because I was on the DNR board a while back with Jamie Reynolds, not the young one that's in the back, but his uncle or cousin who was in Greensboro. We were on the DNR board together, and our politics were kind of different, and you know, I was doing a lot of conservation work, and he was a developer. And he says it was a social experiment that they sat us down next to each other, you know, to see what would happen. And we got along pretty well. And partly because, the reason we got along is because of the way that Reynolds family and Linger Longer, the way they treat landscapes and the things that they do about natural landscapes. And I'm going to come to that in just a minute. But I started on July the 6th, and I was offered the chance to work on 4 or 5 different things. And Jekyll was on that list. And my first thought was, oh my gosh, you know, I came off working on the Beltline here in Atlanta that was very intense and very controversial, not very controversial, but controversial in some quarters. But wow, high intensity. I don't know if I want to go back into another one of those. And then I thought about it and thought, now that's a cowardly approach. Why shouldn't I go to work on something that is the most meaningful thing that I could possibly think of? A way that I can really spend my time and energy on something that means something. And so I thought, okay, I'll do it. I'm going to go back. I'm volunteering to work on Jekyll Island. That was on July the 6th. On July the 13th, we were due to hand to the Jekyll Island Authority then our proposal. So let me tell you something. That 5 weeks or 6 weeks was unbelievable. It was 22-hour days, 24-hour days, a long, long, very strenuous process. We brought in 5 or 6 or 7 other companies, organizations to help us out, to help us figure out some plans. During that whole process, we couldn't go out to the public and say, hey, what do you think about this plan? What do you think about this idea? You know, we're thinking about some cottages, not some condo towers. What about a road that starts here and goes there? We couldn't do that. Because by law, we couldn't talk to the public and we couldn't talk to the newspaper because we were in competition with other people to win this process. And that would have been tainting the process in some way. And so we couldn't do that. We were not allowed to do that. And so it was a little frustrating to us that these stories kept going on. Oh my gosh, you know, $300 a night hotel rooms. We were going, no, it's not going to be like that. You know, the condo towers on the beach. No. We couldn't tell people, don't worry, it's going to be better than that. Now, we still got some work to do. I mean, my point is, again, this is not a plan locked in stone. We have a plan. We put a lot of thought into it. We had a lot of people contribute to it. Now it's your turn to help us refine that plan. Refine that plan. Why did Linger Longer get chosen as the partner? Well, part of it was the quality of the plan, the thought that went into it. But more importantly were some of these other things. The financial strength of the organization. You don't want a partner that 2 years down the road says, gosh, you know, well, we've kind of run out of money. We didn't know it was going to cost this much. And, you know, we can't do all those great things that we said we wanted to do early on. You don't want that to happen. Deep and relevant experience. Very important here. You know, the things that Reynolds has been able to do in terms of running and creating operations of this scale, very important part of the process. A strong team of people that have been with the organization a whole lot longer than I have for many years. Desire to be a long-term partner of the Jekyll Island Authority, another important piece, and building something to hold on to it. Not build it up and then sell it all off in 4 or 5 years. You know, the Reynolds family's been here in Georgia a long time. They got a reputation at stake, a name at stake. They don't want to be seen as somebody who built something off and then just kind of said goodbye. They have a personal reputation at stake as part of that.